Dr. Goodman is our provost here at the university. He joined UMass Dartmouth in 2009 after serving for 8 years as the Director of Economic and Public Policy Research. An economic sociologist, he is past president of the New England Economic Partnership, a nonprofit organization made up of leading regional analysts that produces semi-annual economic forecasts of the economic outlook for each of the 6 New England states. He's authored or co-authored more than 50 professional publications and is a leading expert on the Massachusetts economy. Provost Goodman currently serves as co-editor of Mass Benchmarks, the Journal of the Massachusetts Economy, published by the University of Massachusetts Donahue Institute in cooperation with the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. Dr. Goodman earned his master's and PhD at Boston University. Not only is he super smart, obviously, and very well accomplished as a professor, he is also a very student-centered person and is really excited to work with our families today. Welcome, Provost Goodman.
Thank you so much, Shelley, for that kind introduction, and welcome to all in attendance today. I'm so happy to be here. My name is Mike Goodman, and I'm the Acting Provost and Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs here at UMass Dartmouth. As Shelley just noted, I'm also a member of our faculty, a professor in our Department of Public Policy. I've got the privilege this morning of welcoming you to UMass Dartmouth on behalf of my colleagues to the family orientation session. We're going to be trying to introduce you today to our university and to answer what I'm sure are the many questions you have about the college experience, including, I would imagine, what is a provost anyway? And so I'll get that one out of the way. Short answer, I'm the Chief Academic Officer for our university, which means I oversee all of our colleges, all of our schools and degree programs, our library system, and all of the direct and indirect academic support and related student services. What does all that mean? Bottom line, when it comes to your students' academic experience, the buck stops here. We work very closely in academic affairs with our colleagues in student affairs, including Shelley and the large team that's all dedicated to your students' success. And of course, our administrative supports that help keep our campus functioning. It is, as Shelley mentioned, a real community here, a Corsair family, if you will. And so I'm really thrilled to see you showing up, stepping up, and investing the time in ensuring your student has a good experience here. That's certainly something that we are all committed to here at UMass Dartmouth. So on behalf of our senior administrators, our deans, our faculty and staff, and the entire Corsair family, we want to welcome you to our community. We are all dedicated to ensuring that your student has the very best experience possible and receives all of the academic and non-academic support they will need to thrive, both academically and socially, while they're here at UMass Dartmouth. It's really important that you're taking the time today, I think, to attend this orientation, because one of the themes that I'll try to highlight in my brief remarks this morning, and then I think you'll see repeated throughout the day, is that it's critically important to the success of your student for us to be partners in that endeavor. One way to do that is for you to join our family association. More on that a bit later today. Membership is free of charge, and I'm confident that you will find it a very useful way to stay in communication with us, for us to stay in communication with you, and for both of us to make sure that you're getting the information you're going to need to help your student have the best possible college experience. Again, later today, some of our colleagues will be providing you with detailed information about how you can join and the benefits of membership in our family association. Just a brief personal aside, I've been where you are. I suspect some of you are experienced college parents. The child that we're fortunate enough to be receiving into our community this fall may not be your first, or sometimes it may be a completely new experience for you. I can still remember sending my only child off to college some years ago. And even though I spent my entire career in higher education, it was a very intense and complex and in some ways unexpected experience for me and for my son's mother. While both he and we were ready for him to leave the nest, adolescence does have a tendency to do that. And I can imagine, given the year that we've all just been through, those of you whose students will be living on campus will probably have some mixed feelings, both excited, both your student and you, to have a little bit of space, and with also a little bit of trepidation. When I dropped my son off at school, even though I really should have known better, I was taken aback by how emotional both his mother and I became when we started to see him in the rearview mirror as we left the campus. I think it's something that you should be prepared for. For those of you who are going through this for the first time, especially those of you whose students will be living on our campus, that experience is really just a few short weeks away. So if I can offer a little personal advice at the outset, I would bring tissues. Also, I think it's important to know that we are here to support that transition. This is something we've gone through personally. It's something we manage on an annual basis professionally. And so if you or your student needs help, we're always here to answer those questions and to facilitate as smooth a transition as possible. But whether your student will be living on campus, commuting, or learning online, and I was a commuter student myself when I went through school, I encourage you to stay connected with your students, with us, and with each other. Many of you have experiences that can help other parents. Connecting to other parents, I think, can often, in our experience, be a very powerful way to manage this transition and to address any concerns that you may have. We have the answers that you need, and we stand ready to answer them. But through the family association, or perhaps even direct connections, I would encourage you to connect with your fellow members of the Coursera community. This won't just help you with the transition, however. There are decades of experience in higher education represented on this in this webinar here today, and considerable evidence from the research literature that makes it clear that constructive family engagement in higher education can really and significantly enhance your students' progress towards successfully completing their studies, making the most out of the entire college experience, both academic and social, and positioning them for optimal career success and positive life outcomes. Now, I'll emphasize the word constructive because how to stay engaged with our university and with your students is going to be a little bit different at the college level than it has been during elementary, middle, and high school. One just very a surprise for some parents is that you have now a young adult in college, and with some exceptions, they're going to need to grant you permission to access their educational records. You can learn more about that a little later. Our registrar has forms. We can work with your student to facilitate that access. But even if you're paying the bills, according to the Federal Education Records Privacy Act, or FERPA, that is one thing that's fundamentally different. So I just use that as an example for how the experience that you've had interacting with the educational institutions that have helped bring your student to this point in their academic career, it's a little bit different here at the post-secondary level. Some of you may have heard about the expression helicopter parenting. As I understand it, what it means are parents that hover over all of their child's activities and are constantly prepared to descend rapidly to intervene if the going gets rough for their student or child. I think this term often gets a bad rap because I think that kind of engagement can be very healthy within reason. Of course, taken to the extreme, in our experience, it can undermine your students' experience and ability to acquire some critical skills and learn some of the most important lessons that will be learned here outside of the classroom, that is. As you are no doubt well aware as adults, much of adulthood really requires you to navigate large and complicated organization and institutions to figure out how to solve problems, to figure out how to work with others to achieve solutions, even when it's not obvious what those solutions look like. And so figuring out how to get things done in the kind of environment is a critical life skill. It builds the resilience that decades of research confirms is a major contributor to academic and career success. And so I would encourage you, at least early on, to allow your students the opportunity to work with our institution to solve their problems, even though that's not always easy to do. I can personally identify as a parent with the natural desire to knock down every obstacle and to fight every battle that my student confronted during his high school and college years. I'm told that behavior like this is called lawnmower parenting. The idea being that you're mowing down any challenges or obstacles that might emerge in an institutional setting like ours. It's just, to a certain degree, a very large organization is going to require some bureaucracy, some rules, some unintended consequences, and we're constantly navigating and adjusting as necessary to help people get through that experience. And importantly, as I've noted, learn how to do it so that then when they find themselves in a large organization, perhaps an employer, or interacting with a large institution in their day-to-day lives as adults, that they are not learning it the first time post-graduation. So we are committed to doing our part to help you and your student navigate this brave new world that they are entering. We ask that you let them do their part, which in an important respect is to learn the lessons, have the experience, and develop the skills that are going to position them for success, both here and throughout the rest of their lives. I suspect that many of your students are very excited about the prospect of their new freedoms and the experiences that they're going to gain here at UMass Dartmouth once their college career starts in just a few short weeks. Some of them may appear to you to be maybe just a little bit too excited and a little bit too ready to go out on their own. But I think it's important that no matter what attitude or whether it's anxiety or excitement or something in between, your students still are going to need you when they're here. And there's going to be, I think, it's very important, I think, that you go with the flow to the extent possible, that you're open to them contacting you, and you're flexible enough to recognize that that might not always mean daily phone calls. Don't be surprised if they are radio silent for a period of time and then suddenly engaged in calling on a daily basis with updates and questions or even concerns. Don't be surprised if that quiet child that never told you what was going on in school suddenly becomes very talkative and engaged. This is a big change, and we are very experienced and have spent a lot of time organizing their experience in a way that's going to help that transition be as smooth as possible. You brought them to this point to be amazing kids, smart, kind-hearted, ready for success. I think it's important to trust that what you've done is to prepare them for the kind of independent experience that college promises. I'm committed, and I know our colleagues in student affairs and across the campuses are committed to doing everything we can on our end to help them acclimate to the new environment and to have a great experience, whether they're living on campus, commuting, or learning online, or some combination of those. I want to keep the opening remarks here brief and leave a little time for Q&A. You'll have that opportunity throughout the orientation this morning and this afternoon. But I do want to ask you for two things that will help us be more effective partners in ensuring that your student has both an excellent academic and an excellent social experience during their time here at UMass Dartmouth. We're going to make the same request of your student, and experience has proven that when the parents and the university are on the same page and are delivering complimentary messages, that we get better experiences when that happens. And so the first message that your student will be hearing from us, and I would ask that they hear from you as well, is that they take some ownership of their academic experience. This may seem pretty intuitive, but if you were to ask me what the most important thing a student can do to ensure academic success is, my first answer would be go to class. Someone once said 90% of life is showing up. I don't know about that, but it's very difficult to succeed, even though your students are obviously very bright. Otherwise, they wouldn't be here. Our faculty are brilliant. I can attest to that. Our student body is as well. But if your student thinks that they can be academically successful without attending class, consuming the course materials, putting in the hours and the work, they're in for a unpleasant surprise. And so we're going to make sure that we deliver that message, and we ask that you do the same as our partners in the success of your students. Now, we are far from perfect here at UMass Dartmouth, but I will say we do have one department that does not make mistakes, and that is the Department of Admissions. Your student has earned a place in our class, and deserves to be here. There is no doubt about that. But I want to emphasize that they can't succeed if they don't invest the time, effort, and energy required to master the materials, demonstrate the knowledge and the skills that are going to be required both here and in the workplace. There are no real shortcuts, and we are here to support their work and their efforts in the service of that goal. Now, obviously, going to class is certainly necessary, but it is not going to be by itself sufficient for success in most cases. One way you can help your students succeed is by encouraging them to leave their ego at the door. I think many of students have the experience of being successful high school students, but find themselves running into a bit of a wall academically and unexpectedly when they enter college. Yes, your students are very smart. They're all capable of success. Otherwise, we would not be here talking to one another. As I mentioned, our admissions department has not made a mistake, at least while I've been here. However, college is not just the next natural step after high school, where it's like elementary, middle, high school, the college, and the experience is somehow one continuous, escalating academic challenge. It's in many ways a quantum leap intellectually and socially. Your students are going to have lots of independence in choices and options. But even as we encourage them, and I encourage you to encourage them to embrace this newfound freedom and all the opportunities that come along with it, we need every student to know, and that's every student, that there's no shame in asking for help with your coursework, especially early on when the adjustment to new experiences, freedoms, and challenges is going to be present some serious obstacles for a number of our students. And so asking for help, taking advantage of the supports that we have, both academically, socially, and personally, is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. None of us have gotten to where we are without help and assistance and support. And we invest a considerable amount of resources, time, and energy in deploying those kinds of supports to ensure a successful transition and a successful academic experience. And so your student needs to know, and they'll hear it from us, and I hope they hear it from you, that we have great academic support, tutoring programs, all available for no additional charge. Our faculty are personally committed to their students, want to interact with their students. I'm quite sure, and I've spoken to a number of them this summer and throughout this most extraordinary year that we've just been through. They're eager to be back on campus in person, to interact with their students, your students, our students, and available to provide advice, mentoring, and assistance as needed. So that's the first ask. The second ask is that you encourage your student to get involved in the life of the campus. I know many parents, the instinct is to have their kids turn their attention away from social and extracurricular stuff and focus exclusively on academics when they first get here. I have some sympathy for that point of view. I oversee our academic operations, as you've seen, and so academics, in many respects, do come first. And so it's an understandable instinct. But when we look at the evidence and the research on student success, what we find is that the students who are the most successful are those that find a balance between their academic, the demands on their time, and the energy that they invest in that, and a more well-rounded social experience and engagement with the community, with their peers, and with the larger campus. So what does that mean? That means that those that have found a way to strike that balance tend to graduate on time, complete at a higher rate, and most importantly, perhaps, look back on their college days as perhaps the best years of their lives. And so we're looking for a holistic experience here for your students. We want to make sure that first and foremost, they acquire the academic experiences and skills and knowledge that they're going to need to succeed and thrive in the world. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page, that some of those lessons, experiences, and skills are developed outside of the classroom. And so one way you can help encourage that balance is by urging your students to get involved in one or two student organizations early on. We have a whole host of options for every imaginable interest Just so you know, and you'll get this information in a number of forms, there will be a student organization fair. We call it the Corsair Fair on Wednesday, September 8th from 1:30 to 5, where your student can meet people and sign up and look at all the different options for engaging with others who share similar interests or to get more involved in campus activities. We've got a number of ways for students to get involved in the communal life of our university: intramural and varsity sports, study groups, student government, and a whole host of affinity groups and specialized interest groups for those of your students who have intense interests in certain things. We've got a very large and diverse student population here. And so pretty much anything your student is interested in, it's possible to find a group of students that they can connect to in an organized setting in which they can connect with other students, become more comfortable as a member of our community, and pursue their interests. Getting involved will help your student make connections and friends. It'll smooth their transition to college. And as I noted, the best evidence says if they can successfully balance those engagement and social activities with their studies, it positions them well for academic and career success. Before I open it up for questions, I just want to reinforce the bottom line here. If parents and our community and guardians and those of us that have a shared interest in the success of your student can work together, can reinforce these simple messages, I'm confident we can maximize the chances for success and for a smooth transition to college, and position your students for future success in their lives and in their careers. At the end of the day, we're partners in this endeavor. And so please do not hesitate to raise any concerns or to ask any questions at any time today or throughout your student's experience here at UMass Dartmouth. I think we have a few moments. I can open it up for questions very briefly before I turn it back to Shelley for the next step in today's orientation. This will not be the last opportunity for you to ask questions.
Thank you, Provost Goodman. We have had one question in the chat, in
Yep.
the Q&A rather. What time is the Corsair Fair on September 8th? And you had stated it, and I typed it 1:30 to 5 p.m.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. Good.
Yeah.
So in the service of a smooth transition to the next step in today's orientation, I ask that you enjoy today's family orientation. I thank you for investing the time in your student success. On behalf of my colleagues, I welcome you to the Corsair family and to UMass Dartmouth, and I very much look forward to another opportunity to interact with you in the years ahead. I thank you so much for your time and attention, and I wish you a great day and a wonderful week.